Hello, it's Karen Burniston here with an assembly video for two of my die sets, dies number 1043, the fancy label accordion, and then die number 1044, which are the fancy Flourish frames. And you can check out all of my designs at karenburniston.com. A really nice feature of the fancy label accordion is how generic it is. It really has no theme whatsoever, so you can use it all year round. You also get to choose how many pages you add to your album, so that's completely up to you. I am making a 3-page nature-themed Thinking of You card today. Let's start with the fancy label accordion. There are 6 dies in the set, and the first thing I need to do is cut however many pages I would like for my accordion. So I've cut 3 pieces of a heavyweight cardstock to 5.5-inch square, which is a nice size to cut the accordion pages. Any of the major die cutting machines will work. I am using a Sizzix Big Shot today. So as I die cut each page, I am going to go ahead and find all of the score lines in the piece and work those folds. So there's a long piece across the side. That's the side tab that connects the pages to each other. I will work that fold in both directions and then flatten it back out. 2 little tabs next to the label itself. Those are what connect the labels to its next page, and the entire label pivots as well. So just by working those folds, then I know it's going to be easier to train later. There is an optional stencil emboss feature on the main page. It is in a stitched pattern, so you have a couple choices if you want to use that stitching detail. You could run your page back through your machine using an embossing sandwich, and that will make all of those stitch lines raised. Or you can do what I did, which is just to take a white gel pen and use it as a stencil to add that stitched detail. And once again, I'll just find all of the folds in my page and then just return it all to its flat position. So let's talk about the fancy Flourish frames, which are optional and a separate purchase, but they work great to decorate those pages of the fancy accordion. There are 2 styles of frame, and each of the dies cuts 2 sides to a matching frame. So when you cut each die twice, you'll have enough pieces to make 2 frames. These dies are intricate, so it's a great idea to run through your machine twice just to make sure that you get a good cut, especially when you're using cardstock. Okay, so then I'm just cutting a second set so that I'll have enough to decorate 2 pages. For adhesive, I will use my fine tip bottle. It is filled with LINECO neutral pH adhesive, and we do sell both of those items on our website. I have not had to add any water to my LINECO glue. It flows through the bottle just like you see here without any water, but you can water it down. So if you find that it's a little thick going through your fine tip bottle and you want to add a little water, that'll be perfectly fine. It'll actually increase the dry time as well, give you a little bit more time. These frame edges are designed with easy alignment corners. So what I mean by that is there is a little section of the frame edge that is up in the corner, and if you will line that up exactly with the corner of your accordion, your fancy accordion page, then you'll get perfect placement. So you see right there in the corners, those little tips of the frame edge are right in the corner. Then when I go to place the next frame edge, once again, I just worry about the corners. If I get the corners right into the corners of the page, then that gives me the perfect alignment for the frame edge itself. You can place these in any order that you prefer. I usually like to save the side of the accordion that has that side tab. I usually save that one for last because in that case, the corner alignment tabs are going to have to line up with the score line where the fold is, and it's easier to see where that is when you've already got those other frame edges placed. If you already own a version of the fancy accordion, one of the licensed versions that I did previous to this, you can get these frame edges and they will fit it. So I did not change the size of the accordion itself. It's exactly the same size. And if you look at the 2 versions of the frame, they're actually the same pattern, just in reverse. So one's a positive version of the flourishes and the other one is a negative version of the flourishes. And that means they coordinate really nicely together. So after doing whatever decorating you want to do to your outer frames, then you would line up your 3 pages next to each other, all of them with tabs going to the right. And then we'll use those tabs to connect each page to its neighbor. So we just want to make sure that the page comes up to the fold line but doesn't cross it. and then we'll go on and do the next one. And again, the glue should go all over the side tab, or you can use a strong tape if you prefer. And then we just want to make sure that we don't cross the fold line with the page. The page should come up to the fold line but not cross it. So I can chain as many pages as I want to together. So there's nothing that says this has to be a 3-page album. I could continue on with more pages. But since I have decided to stop at 3, then I can use my scissors and remove my final tab. And on that final page, the last page of my album, I can also trim off the 2 little small tabs that are on the side of the label. Those would normally be used to attach to the next label, but my album stops here. I still want to keep the tabs on my other 2 labels. So I want to decorate my labels now, but before I do that, I'm just going to give a quick little demonstration here of how this will eventually finish the assembly. You'll put a valley between the first 2 pages, a mountain between the next, and then you would continue on, valley, mountain, valley, mountain. Your labels will pivot until they just make a straight line right through the squares. So you can see now that you can use the small tabs to connect the labels to each other. They always connect in front of the valleys and behind the mountains, and that continues on for as many pages as you have. But you'll want to decorate first, because once you've got it attached, then you can't lay this flat anymore. I've chosen the outdoor scene die set to make the decorations for my inner labels. I'm using the edge dies. One has a deer, the other one has some evergreen trees, and I'm just cutting those out and kind of creating a little scene on 3 squares of cardstock that I can then die cut into the size to fit the album using those decorator dies that come with the fancy accordion. Temporary removable tape to hold that die in place, and that will take a few times through the machine because of the layers of cardstock. Then I will switch to white cardstock to cut several of the stitched clouds as well as all 3 size birds. And before removing the cardstock from the bird dies, I'll use the stencil feature and a black pen to add the eyes. Those birds look great out of solid color, so don't feel like you have to use an inking technique on them, but I thought I would just show you my styling, which is to use a peach colored ink with a brush to add some of that peach in the belly area, and then I'm using a blending tool with a bright blue and then inking the rest of the bird, just leaving a little bit of white showing kind of between the peach and the blue. So that's just how I decided to style them. And then one last thing is I'll color in their beaks using my black pen. So I'll use my birds and my clouds and a greeting, thinking of you, from word set 1 to make those decorator labels and then attach them to my accordion. I particularly like the versatility of the outdoor scene die. You can see how well it works for making those spring and summer scenes, but then also you could style it for winter and holiday cards. The flowers in my scene are actually from the fancy accordion set. There's a small little flower that comes with it, and then I just added a rhinestone to the centers of those flowers. Okay, final assembly. I just need to get that zigzag accordion fold back into my outer pages. Always start with a valley, and then the labels themselves will just line up next to each other, and you'll use the small tabs to connect them. So I strongly recommend using glue for the small tabs. You are welcome to try it with a glue dot or some really strong tape. I'm not the boss of you, but I will just tell you from experience that glue is the strongest and best holding up over time with those small tabs. Sometimes even the strongest of tape, if the humidity is high enough, can kind of come unstuck. Okay, I have my first 2 labels joined together, and now I want to use the tabs that are between page 2 and 3 to attach those 2 labels together. So the glue still goes on the front of the tab, so I need to reach in there and get my glue on the tab. Let me see if I can turn this at an angle where you can see the glue. There you go. Okay, so glue on the tabs, and then it may be easier just to turn the album over and bring those 2 labels together and pinch them till they set up. Now, between those 2 labels, that's going to be a valley fold, so we definitely want to make sure that we don't cross the fold with the blue label. So I've got the blue label coming up to the little fold of the tabs, maybe even pinch it like this to make sure I don't cross that fold. The easiest way to train the folds of the accordion album are to grab just the labels themselves and then collapse them down with the opposite zigzag to the outer pages. And in that process, you may find one or more of your tabs pop off, and that's fine. You can just go in there with some glue and fix that. So by training your album with those opposite zigzag folds, then when your album closes up, that first page will pivot around and become the front decoration as well. And of course you can add maybe some frame edges or something to that outer page when the album is closed to give it a little additional decoration. That's completely up to you. I'm going to add some more of those fancy Flourish frames. Now typically I don't decorate the back of the accordion album, although you could. But in my case, I needed a place to sign, so I'm nesting two of the decorator dies together to make a frame. One nice feature of that smaller decorator die is it does have the press dots on both sides of the cut, so that when you use it in this way to make a frame, you'll have that little press dot decoration. And then I'll glue that now onto the back of the album. Now, since this is a 3-page album and that's a light color cardstock, I can just use the frame itself, then I can collapse up the album and sign in the middle. If I had done like a 4-pager or maybe my cardstock was darker, I might want to actually sign a separate label and glue it on the back. When the fancy accordion is folded up, it's about a 4 3/4 inch square. My favorite envelope size would be an A7 envelope. Now you may need extra postage depending on how many pages you add to it or how bulky your embellishments are. So it's just a great generic all-purpose die set, makes a beautiful display card. So now let me show you a few ideas by our incredibly talented design team. Kelly Booth made this beautiful 4-page fancy accordion, and she used some of the tropical dies from this collection. Another 4-pager, this one by Helen Cryer in a princess birthday theme, and I love how she styled the dragon in pink. Fran Sabad also made a 4-page royalty birthday card, this time in a boy theme, and I love how she used texture paste and a brick stencil for those outer frames. And of course you can decorate your fancy accordion using all of your stamps. And here are a couple of great 3-page ideas by Frances Byrne. This one in a wintry chill out on your birthday theme, and then she's done this one with gnomes and little mushroom houses, and I just love those bright colors. And as always, you can check the description box below this YouTube video to find the clickable supply links. If you click on the website link, you'll go to KarenBurniston.com, where you can find out information about purchasing these dies, as well as links to all my other social media accounts. You can subscribe to this YouTube channel and check out some of my other videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.